How's it going? Can you guys hear me? Are we live? Awesome. It's good to see everybody. Yep, we are live. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, let me just share this real quick. I sound pretty clear. Everything's good. Can we start? Awesome. Hey guys, how's it going? Man, it's been a while, hasn't it? It is. Yeah, yeah. This is awesome, man. Huh? Oh, all right. I need to turn up the volume. Do I need to turn up the volume? Someone says I need to turn up the volume. Make you louder. All right, is that better? Just- Are we good? Is the volume louder now? Oh, it's a little low. All right. Okay, let me see here. All right, is this better? Is it louder? Better, better, better. All right. All right. Good. Are we good to go? Should I turn it up some more? It's great seeing you guys, man. It's been a while. Huh. All right. Definitely I got to say this. It's nice starting these live streams again and talking to you guys. We definitely missed you guys. We've been working our asses off behind the scenes, and I can't wait to tell you guys everything that's going on. I'm sure tons of people. I'm sure you guys have a ton of questions. Normally, the live streams um, would normally start earlier, but we've been at it behind the scenes and we working so hard. And this is why we're here right now. Better late than never, though. I'm sure people are gonna, I'm sure you guys are gonna have a lot of questions about many things. Anime Matsuri is a big event, and it's coming up July 23rd to 26th here in Houston. I hope you guys have your badges ready. It's our 20th anniversary, and we wanted to make this year as special as we could. That was the whole point. And for 20 years, we've served this community. Right here, we started at the George R. Brown, and then we went to the Woodlands. We went to a couple of venues here and there, and we're back in the George R. Brown by 2014. Yeah, and we've been there ever since. You know, we every year we try to make the convention as exciting as possible for you guys. We bring all the big events. um, anime, music, art, exhibitions, concerts, different events, artists, vendors, in the best venue, in the best venues we possibly can, here in Houston. Anime Matsuri started in 2007 with about 4,000 people, and here we are today, much, much, much bigger, in a much bigger space. It's crazy how 20 years went by, and you know, I can remember every single year. You know, both our kids were born into Anime Matsuri. Anime Matsuri is older than both our kids. My son is 17. Yeah. So it's been a ride. Every year when the convention ends, what we do with the staff is we ask ourselves, what can we do better? What do we need to do? We're the largest anime convention here in Texas, so it's a responsibility that we carry, and um, we constantly ask ourselves, how can we serve better? What can we do that's better? As you guys know, uh, Anime Matsuri style, just the way the convention is, just being in the venues that we want to keep the convention experience as affordable as we can. I'm sure you guys already know this. We host big concerts and Club AM and the just the cosplay contest, the fashion show, and all these events, and we include everything in the price of the badge. We don't want to charge extra for anything. We want you to come to the convention and experience as much of the convention as possible. That's the point. And this is how we've operated Anime Matsuri from the very beginning. And the ones that you guys that come to the convention and go around and explore, you know what I'm what I'm talking about. The exhibit hall is big. There's a lot of stuff to do there. There's a lot of artists. There's a lot of vendors. At the same time, there's a lot of programming. We've we at some point we realized that since there's so many people at the convention, we needed more affordable food options, and this is how we ended up with food trucks. So back in 2013, when food trucks were not even allowed in downtown Houston, we fought for that, to bring food trucks there, and the reason was to give people a more just a more affordable food options. If you're there, I mean, some people can just bring their own food and in their hotel rooms, but if you wanted to just eat out, you're not restricted just to the restaurants that are there downtown. In 2013, we're at the Hyatt Regency, and I remember fighting. The city wouldn't let us bring any food trucks into downtown Houston, so we had to shut down the street, and that took a long time to accomplish. And it was something that we did behind the scenes. And when people showed up there, yeah, they showed up to the event and there was food trucks outside. Uh, I don't think people realized of how hard it was just to get that done. So in 2014, when we moved from the Hyatt Regency to the George R. Brown, we just took that with us and we started, you know, shutting down one of the streets there around the George R. Brown and putting the food trucks out there. And honestly, we when we approached the food trucks back then, we had kind of like a gentleman's agreement, and we told them, all right, you know what, we would the point of this is just have affordable food options for everybody. Don't charge too much. This way, people can sample foods from different trucks, without you worrying about it being too expensive. That was the whole point, right? The food inside of the convention center, you guys already know, whether you were going to buy some Chick-fil-A or pizza or whatever, anything that was serving there. I mean, that was still available and there was still a bunch of options around the convention center. But some of them expensive, and sometimes, they get crowded. People just wanted something quick. You want to grab something from a truck, walk around, go back into the exhibit hall, walk around, buy stuff. That was the point. And that took a while to figure out. Now, as time went by, we started having some issues with this because the city wanted the exclusivity on food and beverage. They wanted to handle all of the food trucks and all of the food options that were there. It's not something that we really wanted, but there was just so much we could do to fight back for this. Now, the, the in 2025, after the convention was over, when we asked ourselves, okay, what do we do? How do we make everything better? What is the number one issue that we need to solve? That was the question we asked ourselves. I mean, there was a bunch of things which we needed to do. There was a bunch of issues to fix, but what was the most important one? The one that above everything else, the one that like everyone agreed on, that this is the most important one. And not only did we talk to each other on staff, we talked to other people outside of our staff. We talked to some artists, and we talked to some vendors. We talked to some volunteers. We talked to some attendees, and we asked people's opinions on this. And the number one issue was conventions are getting too expensive. And this isn't just anime conventions. And you know what? It isn't just conventions, it's just events in general. Whether it's an anime convention or a Comic Con or tabletop game, it doesn't matter. It's the same. The experience was getting too expensive. So it isn't, I'm not just talking about the badges, the access to the convention. It's more than that. There is that, but then there is parking. There's the hotels, there is food, there is, just the operations. And then sometimes you're in there, autographs, they're so expensive. This is yeah, this is a thing. This is a thing, and this problem was above every other problem. And the big issue with this problem was there was no signs of it going backwards. So everything was just going up without any signs of stopping or going backwards. This wasn't sustainable. Now, I want you guys to understand that we understand our demographic, and we understand you guys. We understand our attendees. Having an anime convention, even though it's at the same venue, right, as, let's say an OTC, which is the, oil and gas event, or some medical event, or, something like that. It's completely different. The demographic that attends these events is completely different. So while their demographic can afford to pay expensive hotel prices or just expensive parking. Last year we're asking around for parking. What some people paid. Some people paid $50 for parking. I get upset. I get angry just hearing that. Why? Why is it $50? Why is it so expensive? It shouldn't be so expensive. But it is. And just because you can charge something, and I get it, business is business, but I mean, where do you draw the line? So we, we talked about this nonstop. And first of all, we had to identify what the problem was, and then figure out how we're going to fix it, or at least what we can do from, for our part. I remember back in the day. When I say back in the day, it wasn't even that long ago. Even pre-COVID. You could. I mean, events were way more affordable. I mean, look at movie theaters. They all these movie studios, they complain about, not enough people going to see movies in theaters. Well, why would they? If I mean, if the ticket is like $20, and then you go in there and popcorn is like $10, and water is like $7. So if you go there with like your friends or family of four, how much are you spending? What over $100? So then it's easy for anybody to say, you know what, I'll just sit back and just wait for this thing to come on streaming, this movie to come out on streaming. Why? Why does it have to be so expensive? Well, is it anything other than greed? Popcorn's like 50 cents. Why is it so expensive? Why is it like $10 or $7 or $8 or anything like that? Why? Well, with events, is it's the same. The one thing is the venue themselves, whoever they are, and whatever venue, raising their rent, right? That's one thing. And so if you think about it, if a venue raises the rent, then what happens is now the event organizer would now pass that down to the attendees. So then the badge prices would go up, or the artist alley booth would go up, or the vendor booth would go up, or something. The attendees always end up paying for all of these things, because which business person, which event wants to cut into their profits? The the George R. Brown has started some expansion downtown. They're expanding the facility. They're adding one more exhibit hall, and I mean it's a big construction. They have $2.5 billion, which they're investing into the facility, and it's going to keep going until 2030, right? Uh, Fully funded, and that's great and all, right? We knew that we would get to the point where our rent will increase. We knew, and that started this year. But the problem was still the same. No matter what happened, we didn't want to increase our badges. We felt like our badges are where they're supposed to be, right? I think like our most expensive badge is like I think like $100, and if you bought it earlier, it was less than that. And this covered all of the days and all of these events, everything. Now, yeah, it's easy to say, well, you know what? They increased our rent, so we'll just increase the badge price, and then we'll increase the booths, and we'll increase just everything. But how how far can we go with this? So what happens when they do it again? We are going to price people out of the convention. That was not the point of Anime Matsuri to begin with. The point of Anime Matsuri was to promote anime and Japanese pop culture here and make it accessible to as many people as possible, even the ones that didn't have that much money. You can come and you can check it out and you can see, and you might just fall in love with this community, with anime. There's tons of people that have come to the convention that have seen, experienced something, one thing or another, and just became fans. There's people that we know that have their kids now going to the convention. So just raising prices isn't really the answer. Regardless. And like I said, it isn't just one thing. It's multiple things. If you guys are from Houston, anybody that's here from Houston, right? There's two main venues in Houston, two big ones, which is the George R. Brown and NRG. So most of the, should I say, conventions, whether they're Comic Cons or anime conventions or whatever, it usually most of them is one of these two venues, right? These two venues are the big convention centers which we have here in Houston. They're both expensive. I try to keep in touch, even though we're not at the NRG. I try to keep in touch with the NRG and just ask them, hey, what's going on over there? Just to have an idea of what's going on, where the market is going. Do you guys know that the NRG has a mandatory cleaning fee? And just so you guys understand what that is, if you're hosting an event at the NRG and you take two exhibit halls for a 3-day event, your cleaning fee is almost what did I say, like 29,000, 28,000, which you have to pay. That's tacked onto your bill. What do they do? What kind of cleaning can does somebody do for $29,000? 3 days, two exhibit halls. Their parking, they have exclusivity on their parking. So if you're going there, and you want to attend and you're driving there, you have to park. You have to pay to park in there, and their parking can range from $20 all the way up to $100, depending on the event and depending on what's going on. That's a lot. They have exclusivity over security, so which means that they will provide the security and they will bill you. All of these things make it extremely challenging for any event organizer to just host their event and focus on the right things, because now everyone's worried about, can they afford this, can they afford that, and then the go-to answer is, well, let's increase prices. Now, the George R. Brown doesn't have a cleaning fee, but the George R. Brown has a surcharge, which they charge, X amount of dollars per person, per ticket sold, per on top of everything. So if you say you had, I don't know, let's say you had $40,000, then they will charge you 40,000 times whatever the surcharge is. Our surcharge is $2, so that would be $80,000 over everything. And I'm explaining this stuff just so you guys have an idea, because at the end of the day, this is our community. It's us together. We're all in this together. We host the event, but we also love anime and we want to see this thrive. And we're all in it together. Everyone, even an attendee, you're still part of this. So whenever things like this come up, we try. What I can be is I can be as transparent as I can, and let you guys know what's going on. And from here, you'd be surprised. You guys are in the know what's happening. You guys can chime in. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so this gives some context of what is going on. And what I'm explaining now isn't just an Anime Matsuri thing. This affects everybody. The fact that they're not talking about it doesn't change anything. Everyone is going through this. It doesn't matter what venue, what city, what type of event. This is something that affects everybody. I don't look at events or conventions, any other convention, as competition. No. We're not in competition with any other event. That's not how we look at it. It isn't us versus this convention or that event. No. It's all of us, all the events versus them, versus the venues, versus the unions. I was talking to a vendor today, Misty Mountain Gaming, and they do TCG, very popular. They're one of the sponsors for Anime Matsuri this year. I'm really excited to see them. Amazing people. They're going to bring, some really awesome stuff to the convention this year. He was telling me how he was at the Vegas Convention Center for a convention there, and they they charged him $9,500 to have 3 pallets from his truck moved from the truck to his booth inside the convention center, because that convention center, has unions, and the unions will dictate that you can't even carry your own stuff inside. If you want to move it, if you want to move a pallet, you got to use them. $9,000. And he said he made a stink about it. He went to the convention organizers. They talked about it. They went back and forth, and they reduced it to like 5,000. It was still that much money. This is what happens, and this is a vendor. Before he can do anything, like, just, this stuff is this stuff is ridiculous. I'm not him, but I feel for him. We've, we try our best to keep the union out of what we do. And we try as, we try, we push as best as we can. Because when this happens, how do you, where does this go? How far does this go? Where is enough is enough? We don't have to get to the point, where everything is so bad before doing something about it. We can sort of anticipate where everything is going and like say, hey, wait, we got to do something about this. I believe if more conventions work together, to push back on this kind of stuff, we would be better off. Because you know why? The venues work together. They all talk to each other. They're not in competition. There's no way they're in competition. No one's poaching the other one's events. No, they're not in competition. They're like, they want to make sure that they're fine. Again, it's them versus us. But we, this anyone that I talk to, any event organizer that thinks of their event or any other event as, oh, they're competing against A, B, and C and this and that, is looking at everything the wrong way. Yeah. Everything that I've said, you can see where it's going, and what it's pointing at is not sustainable, and I don't want to see this happen to our community. Eh, Not just Anime Matsuri, just any event. I think conventions, anime conventions, or it doesn't matter. It could be Comic Cons, just any kind of like fandom events like this should be more affordable. So, um, even though we've had this discussion with other convention organizers, we've talked to um, people, other whether it's convention organizers or producers, companies, everybody agrees. They don't talk about this too much because they're worried. I don't know. Maybe they think it sounds bad. Maybe they just, I don't know why. But this isn't talked about. Well, I'm talking about it. And it doesn't matter if they or if anybody doesn't want to start this push, we will start it. I've been on this since Anime Matsuri 2025. I will start it. I will start this pushback because somebody needs to do it. Now, obviously, this is not something that I can do by myself, or it's not something that even Anime Matsuri can do by itself. We need help and we need support from more people. Because the alternative, if we don't do anything about it, um, what's on the other side? It's it's not good. We are already at a in a place where things are more expensive than they should be, and some things I understand, but a lot of things don't make any sense. Um, I saw, somebody was asking about hotels. Um, Let me show you guys something. Um, for anyone that's been on the website, we announced Anime Matsuri Hotel Day, and this is something that we wanted to launch back in January. After Anime Matsuri 2025, we went to the hotels and we wanted a more affordable rate. Hotels never go back. They don't go backwards. They only go forward. Everything gets more and more. They have this thing where the minimum increase it can be year to year is like 4 or 5% or something, right? I mean, the only exception to that was during COVID, where they had no customers and you know nobody even doing the events. But besides that, I can't imagine the last time a hotel charged less in one year than they did the previous years. We have the two biggest hotels, next to the convention center. We have the Marriott and we have the Hilton. And we negotiated. Let me just give you some context so you guys, know what I'm talking about. This is wait, hold on. Let me see if I can switch this. You guys take a look at this. Let's see. All right, so this is the Marriott. This is the Marriott Marquis. Awesome hotel. Texas, lazy river, everything. This is how much it is right now. Look. Are you guys seeing this? Do I need to make this bigger? There. I mean, you can go check. If, we're talking about like 500 and some dollars a night. I like the Marriott Marquis. I like this hotel. It's awesome. Has a Texas lazy river, but that's expensive. That is way too expensive. So of course we've been going back and forth with them for months. And you know what the ask was? Just so you guys know, and just to be transparent, I told them we need sub $200 rooms. They said that's impossible. Last year, the rooms, I think the rooms for the Marriott was 229 or 239, something along those lines. And this would mean going back. Mm-hmm. I said it's impossible, but I refused to sign the contract until they made that work. This is why the hotel they kept being pushed backwards, because I didn't want to sign a contract with hotel rooms at that hotel that were over $200. You guys want to know? Uh, the contract was finally signed just a few days ago, not even that long ago. After going back and forth, everybody got involved. Everybody, all the way up to the GM. And you know what it is now? $189. When this hits the internet, when we make this announcement, you guys are going to be, I mean, there's people that are not on this live stream. They're going to hear about this and they will rejoice. Be like, this is amazing. Some people take it for granted. Some people think that we would just call up the hotel and they'll just give us that price because, I'm letting you guys know it took almost 10 months. And when I say it was a lot of work, it was a lot of work. Yeah. And that's just this hotel. This is the most expensive hotel we have this year. Every other hotel is cheaper than that. I think the hotels start as low as 129. So the reason we started with the Marriott, because that's the most expensive one. And if we can get the most expensive one to be under 200, then everyone else would have to fall in line. You can't, it's hard to argue and say, well, no, I want to charge more money. Well, you can't. The most expensive hotel is at that price point. There's, I think, about 5 or 6 hotels in our hotel block. And this is where we are. We fought for it. The biggest pushback that we get whenever this happens is when people ask us, what do you care? It's not your money. You're not the one paying for it. I can't tell you guys how much or how many times I've heard that. So many times. Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, they're right. We're not the ones paying for it. However, we've been around for 20 years. I care about our attendees. And affordable hotels and just affordable everything, parking and everything, that means a better convention experience. And attendees shouldn't have to, worry about all this, parking so expensive, or hotels are food is so expensive. Like this is not so. It adds to the convention experience. When you go into the convention, you should have fun, do the things that you want to do, buy the stuff you want to buy, go to the artists, support them, go buy stuff from the vendors, and have fun with all your friends, and attend and experience all these awesome events, versus having to worry if you have to pay so much money for parking or hotels or any of this stuff. That's how I see it. We are fighting to make parking more affordable right now. It's been going on. It's been going on for months. The amount of pushback we're having is huge. The I'm a creative person. I love I want to do more, like, I love art exhibitions. So if it was up to me, I would spend tons of time doing that stuff, doing events. Is anybody here in the chat? You guys were at Anime Matsuri 2017. 2017, we bought the Sailor Moon musical to our convention, and they did the show in B3. That was amazing. That's the first time that the Sailor Moon, like, live musical actually came here, right? In 2018, we did the Evangelion exhibition. You guys remember that stuff? Each of those things, all of those things, took a lot of time and effort to pull off. A lot. In 2017, I probably went to Japan maybe 7 or 8 times, just so we can get all this stuff done. I like to do that kind of stuff. I love to host big concerts and make sure the cosplay contest is awesome, and the fashion show is amazing. This is what I like to put my time in. However, I can't do any of that stuff if I don't put just as much or even more time protecting our attendees from everyone else that wants to just take advantage of this, and then telling me, well, what do you care? It's not your money. So it's like, this has become my new calling, and I find myself doing this more than I thought I would. I don't, you know, I don't feel bad about it. I feel great because it needs to be done. If I can't do this, then how can I do the other stuff? If everything is so expensive, then what is the point of bringing this amazing experience from Japan? The point is to make it accessible. It sucks if you have to bring, you have to spend half a year working on bringing some big awesome experience from Japan, but then it gets here and most people or some people or anybody doesn't get to go because they can't afford it. Yep. So what are we going to do about all this? What is the plan? How do we make how do we tackle this problem? Well, we have a plan. Here's what we're going to do. Hmm. Um, First, and this is in no particular order, we knew that we had to fight to make the hotels more affordable. We've accomplished that. We are currently fighting to make parking more affordable. And when we accomplish that, I will come back to you guys and I'll let you guys know. Right? We are working to make food options more affordable. We're on it. Um, we can't do anything about our rent. We can't have the venue and tell the venue, hey, don't charge us. This rent is too high or whatever. Um, there's not much we can do about that. What we can do is how we respond to it. So I'm happy to say uh, we're not going to increase our badge prices. That's not where this is going. Because when we started this conversation, the whole point of this was how do we make the convention more affordable? So if I come to you and say, well, we need to increase our badge prices, that's going in the wrong direction. So we're not going to increase our badge prices. We don't want to. We're not going to increase the price of the booths for vendors and artists either. So you might be wondering, okay, if we don't do any of this stuff, how do we even make enough money to even host the event? All right, here's what we're going to do. And for this, um, we're going to need some help here. Let me use the Artist Alley as an example. Artist Alley, we have about 300 artists or so, 260 to 300, somewhere around there. We love our artists. We want our artists to, to have the best business that they can. A lot of these artists, they're small businesses. They're not, you know, big companies with tons of money. No, most of them are just, the small businesses. But they're really talented people. I love the Artist Alley, and I love the artists. I love art myself, and just walking around the Artist Alley, I've seen the creativity. A lot of these people, a lot of the artists are worth supporting. So let me just use um, some numbers. You guys see if you can follow me on this one. With the increase in our rent, if we were to match that with the Artist Alley booths, and if we had to increase the price of the Artist Alley booths to match the increase of our rent so that we can, so everything adds up, an Artist Alley booth would be $500. That is minimum. Okay, we don't want to charge the artist $500. So what we decided was to do this. We would charge the artist $300. They would pay $300. And the difference in $200, each artist would get like a code, like a discount code. And these codes, every time it's used, would generate like a 10% discount. So think of it like an affiliate program, something like that. So if each artist has a code that can be used 20 times, and every time the code is used, it gives the user a 10% discount. And every time the code is used, it gives the artist $10 towards their balance. So if we do that and we give them 6, 7, 8 months or whatever the deadline is, let's just say, if that code is used 20 times before the deadline, we call it even. And all they would have paid out of pocket is $300. They can give it to their friends, their families, their customer, whatever. So in other words, we're compensating for the difference by bringing in more people, giving more people access to the event. Now, some people can, you can look at it this way and be like, well, that's, it's risky because we are, I could cut, I could have some, it could be a ripple effect to that, and that could affect our profits. Yes, but we're willing to take that risk. Now, let me just paint this picture. So just imagine, just imagine if this is done. So just imagine an artist paying $300 out of pocket, getting a code, and then in months, he gives that code out to his friends or family or whatever, and it's used. So that at that point, we call it even, and the artist would have paid only $300. But then that artist would have then also brought in 20 extra people. Now, if I'm one of those people that if I get a discount coupon from an artist for Anime Matsuri and I use it and I get a 10% off the badge price, when I go to the convention, one of the first things I'm going to do, I'm going to go see that artist and say thank you and probably buy something from him and support him or her or whoever, and support them and be grateful. That's what I would do. So not only will they pay less, but they have a big potential to make more. Their profits is going to go up because there's going to be a lot more people at the convention and a lot more grateful people at that. Mm-hmm. This is how we're going to compensate for that. And this same thing can be applied to vendors. Another thing, right? Starting 2027, we hope to move some of the programming, probably the main events, and maybe panel rooms and all that stuff from the convention center into the hotels. And there's two reasons for this. It's much, much more affordable to do that because the hotel stays open 24 hours. So think of like video games. There's many people, our video game area is inside the exhibit hall. And when at 7 p.m. it closes, that's it. you can't, like, if you want to play games and whatnot, the exhibit hall doesn't stay open all night or whatever. But if the gaming area was in the hotel, then that area can stay open as long as we want without paying any extra. So, you could keep it open till 3 in the morning if you wanted to. And that's totally fine. Whereas if you did that in the convention center, that would be a problem and it would cost way more. So of course the exhibit hall and all, that is always going to be there, but I'm talking about programming panels, the other things, and anything also that requires even staying longer. If any of you guys are familiar with Dragon Con, it's something along those lines. I think they have most of their programming and stuff in the hotels, and they have their exhibit hall in the convention center. Yeah. Um, this is stuff that we are discussing, and everything that is being done. We're doing everything just to um, fight the good fight, make the convention experience better and more affordable. Now, if anyone that's unfamiliar, when I say like we can move gaming or whatever to the Marriott and the Hilton, their event space is large. It's massive. So many times when we talk about like LARP, maybe not even LARP. LARP is one thing, but maybe maybe tabletop gaming, video games, some other panels, things like that. The issue with this is when what is the latest time we can actually host something. And the difference is in the convention center we have to be there by a certain time versus the hotels where we can we can be there all night if we want to. So anyway, making some things in the hotels and some things in the convention center. Yeah. um Let me take a look at the chat real quick. Yeah. All right, so uh, just to answer a couple of questions here. When is the hotel gonna go live? Very soon. I think we have everything. We just signed the last contract, so I hope, and we're gonna give you guys a heads up. Um, we'll give you guys hopefully by the end of this week. Hopefully, we can get that stuff knocked away. We'll give you guys at least 24-hour notice. Now, what is our ask? We need your support. Everything that I've said, everything I've explained, everything that I've talked about. This is we're gonna do our part, and we're letting you guys know, and we're being transparent to tell you what the plan is. But we need your help in doing all this, right? We appreciate even being here, even having the opportunity to do this after 20 years. It's a big deal. So when the hotels go live, just remember, every hotel room that's booked under the hotel block, that's good for us. that gives us ammo to fight this more the following year and the following year, right? Really consider, you might find cheaper options at an Airbnb or something like that, or whatever. But if the option isn't that big, be part of the block, because it makes a big difference. If we can sell out the block as fast as possible, that says so much. That sends a message, the message that we want to send. And I promise you guys, I will keep fighting for this to keep the prices as low as possible. I'm doing it now. So just help us. We'll let you guys know when the block is going to go live. Tell your friends, tell anybody, your friends, your family, your colleagues, to join us. And that would be amazing for the hotels. On the other end, we are going, we're already in the middle of fighting for the other things like parking and all the other things that I mentioned. We also need you guys to help us promote the event. See, we haven't even started our push. All of the guests that we have and everything, we start now. I wanted to have this live stream and I wanted to have this conversation first, so you guys understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. This year, for some reason, even though we didn't plan it this way, it's our 20th anniversary, right? We didn't plan it this way, but we have a sense of purpose here, because this needs to be done. For us to do the things that we want to do and bring the experiences we want to bring, this is something that we have to deal with. I am sorry and I apologize that even though we were aware of this, we didn't put as much time and effort into fixing this earlier, because we should have. We should have known. We saw it coming, but it's just like, if you keep thinking somebody else is going to do it, then it never gets, it just doesn't get fixed. Finally, we have big plans, not only for this year, but for 2027. And we want to finalize our 2027 dates and events. Just remember, for 2027, we want to take event space in the hotels. And this will be amazing, because if you picture, both the hotels, each one, different themes, different stuff going on, as late as we want them, even after the convention center closes. That's amazing. But because we need all of this, we need this space, and we got to plan everything early, and we got to make sure that we secure the space. We are trying to secure our 2027 event before the end of this month. So there is no questions about what we can or cannot do. So we are focusing on making the 2026 event, as awesome as we can, but at the same time, getting 2027 secured. Because we're also, we have to also take into consideration that if we wait, when 2026 comes around and there's so many people at the event, and the event is successful, that might change some of the conditions in the contract for 2027. Things might get, they might ask us for more money, it might be more expensive, and we don't want that, which is why we want to do this. So in order to pull this off, again, I'm sure you guys already bought your badges. And if you haven't, buy your badges as soon as you can. We want to sell as many badges as possible before the end of the month, so that we can do everything that I've said we're going to do. And, I hope to have at least, a couple of these live streams a week. And I'll update you guys on everything that's going on. I'll tell you guys what's happening, and you guys can be part of this journey and part of what we're doing. so you can see. And if things are going to change for the better, you guys can see and be part of that change, be in the middle of it. And we're going to make these changes together. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going through the chat here. It's some pretty funny comments. Um, yeah, people. Yeah, somebody asked this. Is Vic coming this year? Yeah. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Not only is Vic coming this year, there's a Vampire Night reunion at the convention, which will be announced uh, very soon, probably this week. Somebody's asking, what do I think of AI? Yeah, AI. Well, I'll tell you this much. AI is not going anywhere. AI is here to stay, and we better make peace with that. Um, yep, of course, AI will never replace talent and the sheer creativity of the artists that spend time drawing, painting, illustrating. But on the other hand, AI is not going anywhere. So we just have to make peace with that and figure out what the middle ground is here. Yeah. Yeah. AI is never. Yeah. AI is not going to replace any artists. That's not happening. Well, at least from our point of view, it's not happening. I don't know how it is everywhere else, but we have a no AI policy in our artist alley. I'm not sure what everyone else is doing. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, what is you guys have been to our cosplay contest, right? You guys you have been to the cosplay contest? You like the cosplay contest? How big it is? I think of Cosplay contest. Um, this most popular event. Maybe next to Club AM, but it's a lot of people and it's pretty popular. You like the way we handle the cosplay contest? The screen, the production. Yeah, yeah. I missed the Tenjin Festival. Yeah, ready for WrestleMania. Yeah. Um, Cosplay contests are fun. A little cringe, but fun. Yeah, yeah, they are. Remember, cosplayers that are in the cosplay contest, not everyone's a professional. Many of them is their first time on stage. You got to give them credit. It's not easy get on a stage that size, and performing, or even walking, you know, in front of thousands of people. This is daunting. People don't realize how daunting that is until you actually try it. So we always give the cosplayers a lot of credit. We love them, and yeah. Um, well, the just to finalize, we want to thank everybody. We want to thank you guys. It's 20 years. We wouldn't have gone to this point, without you guys. We really, really appreciate it. We're doing our best to push things in the right direction, not just for our event, but just for the community in general, because it needs it. We hope, um, more events are gonna see this, and we're gonna make things better for everyone, together. And we appreciate you guys. We appreciate your help and your support, and we need your help and your support in this. We need this for, ideally, for for everything that I said to do, and letting you guys know what you need to do to help us. Everything is possible. Everything that I've mentioned today is possible, and I'm pretty optimistic. I'm an optimistic kind of person in general, and I'll just go for it. We thank you for your support. It really means a lot to us, and of course we can't do any of this stuff without you anyway. So um, we'll be we'll do more streams. We're getting closer to the convention, and there's a lot to talk about. I wanted to just start with this first because this sets sets the tone and gives good context to everything that follows, and this is important. So after this, there's many other things to talk about, and we will we'll have more streams. Uh, this stream will happen a couple of times a week, and besides that, there's other the Denise's stream is coming too. Sometimes she'll be with me, sometimes she'll do her thing on Instagram. And again, we appreciate everyone. Thank you so much. I guess we'll see you guys at the next stream. And I'll answer. There's a bunch of other questions here, which I'll answer the next stream. And yeah, yeah, the app is coming. Yeah, yeah, the app is coming. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. All right. I'll see you guys later on this week. Thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you, guys. See you guys later.